Shaundakul, also known as the Rider of the Winds and the Helping Hand, is the chaotic neutral god of travel and exploration. Merchants, rangers, miners, explorers, adventurers, and anyone who travels to distant lands or explores uncharted territories pray to him to bless their travels. In this video, I'm going to cover every tiny bit of detailed information I could find on Shaundakul. If you want more deep dives into the Dungeons & Dragons universe, check out my channel and subscribe for more coming in the future. Also, if you liked the video, make sure to hit the like button as that helps me out a lot, and anything you want to ask, critique, or just say, feel free to do so in the comments. I read all the comments and I love it when you guys talk to me. History. Shaundakul's origin isn't known, but one theory suggests he originated around the time of the Russ, an Aluskan tribe of the Sword Coast North who are ancestors of the modern-day Rashomar. In terms of an exact date, though, we don't really know how long the Russ had been around, and we don't know when Shaundakul came into the picture. The only thing we're for sure about is that he has been around since before the Dawn Cataclysm, but we don't actually know when the Dawn Cataclysm happened either, so his origins are very mysterious. Shaundakul was primarily worshipped by human and half-elf traders and explorers within Myth Drannor, where most of his worship was concentrated. After Myth Drannor was destroyed, most of his worshippers died. The surviving rangers were absorbed by Maliki, and the traders turned to Joaquin. He went from an intermediate power to a lesser power bordering on demigodhood in 2nd edition, although 3rd edition says he was just straight up a demi-power. And he only had 6 priests as of 1358 DR. During the time of troubles, he wandered the ruins of Myth Drannor and was said to have battled and destroyed at least one god from either the Orc Knoll or Giant Pantheon. Afterwards, he began focusing more on re-establishing his worship base, oftentimes by manifesting his avatar to personally recruit worshippers. And this aggressive hands-on approach, combined with merchants and traders turning to him in the absence of Joaquin, as she was imprisoned by Grazit during this time, revitalized his church and boosted him back to the status of lesser power. At some point around this time, he also added portals to his portfolio. When the Spell Plague occurred in 1385, Shaundakul stepped through a portal and walked various worlds to escape its onslaught. He helped denizens of Toril who had been scattered by the catastrophe find their way back to Toril as the Spell Plague subsided. Now, as of 5th edition, he tends to take mortal guises and help lost travelers, revealing his true nature only to his most devoted worshippers. Description. First, let's discuss his personality. Shaundakul is a god of few words, letting his actions speak for him. He is kind but stern, and he enjoys a good conversation, especially if jokes are involved. As of 1370 DR, he was desperate for worshippers, and would try and convince any ranger, fighter, wizard, or thief of the appropriate alignment to become one of his faithful. As of the 1300s, he spent much of his time wandering the ruins of Myth Drannor in avatar form. He also stalks Isgard in the Beastlands with his wind ghost hunting fierce beasts and evil giants. Relationships. After the Dawn Cataclysm, he had a brief dalliance with Tamora, and rejected the advances of her sister, Bashaba, causing Bashaba to vow revenge against Shaundakul and count him among her enemies. Bashaba impersonated him and appeared to the Badain nomads of the Anarok Desert as a jackal-headed man. She ruined his reputation and convinced the Badain that he is a malicious trickster responsible for blinding folk, drying out oases, causing travelers to become lost, and other misfortunes. Shaundakul's portfolio overlaps quite a bit with Helm, Joaquin, Maliki, Selûne, and Tamora, and they would most likely not accept any further encroachment, meaning they would limit any chances he has for long-term growth. However, he remains on good terms with most of them, along with the more daring members of the Seldarine. He opposes Shar as he detests secrets, and he battles Bashaba for the suffering that she has inflicted with his name. His favored planar servants that he sends to faithful in need are wind ghosts. Wind ghosts are cone-shaped fleshy creatures with fanged maws and milky pupilless eyes. They illuminate themselves with fairy fire, causing them to glow blue and violet, giving them a ghostly appearance, hence their name. And although they look horrifying, they are not aggressive and are lawful neutral in alignment. Appearance. Shaundakul's holy symbol is a silver upright left hand, with its palm out and fingers together, and its wrist trails away into rippling winds. It is usually on a black or deep purple background of circling winds. Although in 3rd edition, for some reason they changed his symbol to a bearded man in a cape and boots walking on wind. If a worshipper of his is threatened by enemies, he usually appears as a glowing, speaking hand surrounded by whirling wind which points them in the right direction. He will also manifest as a wind wall spell, either by protecting them with the walls if he wishes to aid them, or blocking their path if he is dissatisfied with them. He will also occasionally turn his faithful into wraith form to help them escape, or send his personal wind ghosts or animals such as squirrels, wolves, birds, and rabbits to guide or aid them. Shaundakul himself is a tall, handsome man, appearing as either 6 feet tall or 18 feet tall, with a regal manner. He has dark hair, wears a black cloak that always whips in the wind, leather armor typical of rangers, and boots. His feet never touch the ground, walking silently on the air except for the whistling of the winds that always follow him. Abilities. While he normally only appears to his faithful to heal, protect, and show the way to success and out of danger, he occasionally does stand and fight beside them. In this case, he wields a large two-handed sword called the Sword of Shadows, a +5 sword that in 2nd edition does triple damage to undead and double damage to giants and goblin kind, which includes orcs and kobolds for some reason. In 3rd edition, it dealt 2d6 extra damage against lawful creatures, exploded with ice on critical hits, and had an increased threat range. According to the 2nd edition book Ruins of Myth Drannor, he is a level 14 fighter, level 12 wizard, and level 12 priest. But according to another 2nd edition book, Faiths and Avatars, he is a level 30 ranger, level 21 fighter, level 21 cleric, and a level 20 wizard. The former takes place while he still only has 6 priests, and the latter takes place after he had revitalized his church, so it makes sense he would be stronger. In 3rd edition, he is a level 20 ranger, level 10 wizard, and a level 10 cleric. He can turn into a swirling, shadowy figure of wind when he pleases, and can cast Gust of Wind once per day. He can hear when any of his names are spoken, along with the next 9 words out of that person's mouth, and can sense the likeness, distance, and direction of the speaker. Although do keep in mind that gods are not all-powerful beings, so they tend to block this out so as to not go insane. He can choose to reply to people saying his names, his response being 9 words or less, and arriving on the wind. None of these limitations of hearing or communication are present within his temples or shrines. Worshippers. In 2nd edition, his worshippers could be of any alignment other than evil. When it came to his clergy, they could only be neutral good, neutral, or chaotic neutral, so any alignment that is not evil or lawful. However, his specialty priests, which make up 70% of the organization, had to be chaotic neutral or chaotic good. In 3rd edition, in addition to chaotic neutral and chaotic good, his clerics could also be chaotic evil. In 2nd edition, clergy members had to be either specialty priests, crusaders, or rangers. 10% of his clergy are crusaders, called Wind Fists, 20% are rangers, called Zephyrs or Mistrals, and the rest are specialty priests, called Windwalkers. In 2nd edition, Windwalkers got the ability to cast certain spells related to wind and finding direction for free a few times a day, are good at stealth and surviving in the wilderness, and at 10th level they can never be lost unless transported by magic. In 3rd edition, they had a permanent featherfall effect on them, resistance to cold, could cast Analyze Portal and Airwalk at will, got various travel and air-related spells and abilities, and then eventually gained a 100-foot fly speed at 10th level. Organization within the church. Given the chaotic and wandering nature of Shaundakul and his clergy, there is no strict hierarchy within the church, and the various cells operate independently. However, self-chosen titles and a loose hierarchy do exist. In ascending order, they are Seeker of the Wind, Scout, Trailblazer, Explorer, Guide of the Hidden Ways, Rider of the West Wind, Rider of the South Wind, Rider of the East Wind, Rider of the North Wind, and Lord High Windhand. Dogma. Those wishing to join the clergy are told, quote, "Ride the wind and let it take you wherever it blows. Aid those in need and trust in the helping hand. The world is large with many lands as yet undiscovered. Seek out the riches of the earth and the sea and journey to distant horizons. Be the first to see the rising sun, the mountain peaks, the lush valleys. Let your footsteps fall where none have tread. This is the wonder of the world." End quote. Day-to-day activities. Since they worship a god of travelers, Shaundakul's clergy seldom stay in one place for long, so their temples tend to rotate staff out as old ones leave and new ones arrive. Shaundakin are expected to provide for themselves either by living off the land or hiring themselves out. They act as scouts, guards, and leaders for parties, explorers, caravans, and mining expeditions. After the time of troubles, they work to increase his worshipper base by getting his name out there, but they spread his influence by example and action, not by preaching. They attempt to visit and refurbish ancient shrines to Shaundakul along with constructing new ones. And since adding portals to his portfolio, they search for portals that would aid in trade and exploration. Occasionally, Shaundakul will send a wind ghost to accompany a priest on an important mission. Holy days and important ceremonies. Windwalkers pray for their spells in the morning right after the wind shifts from the changing temperature. They also say a short prayer anytime the wind changes significantly. And whenever they discover uncharted territory, they are supposed to create a small throne made of stones marked with Shaundakul's symbol, and if high enough level, create a shrine using the stone-shaped spell. The Shaundakin clergy only have one holiday, called the Wind Ride. Wind Ride takes place on the 15th of Tarsak, which is the 4th month. Priests must seek out a strong breeze and cast a Wraith Form or Windwalk spell at dawn. The spell's duration is extended by Shaundakul to last from dawn to dusk. Additionally, if a priest is too low level to have access to one of these spells, he gives them the ability to cast Wraith Form on this day only. They then spend the entire day soaring through the air, going wherever the wind takes them, and landing safely at dusk, usually in a region they have never been before. Temples and shrines. Shaundakul has few temples, as his followers aren't the type to stay in place for long. However, his traveling priests do build many shrines, particularly in the Moonsea North. In fact, he prefers to be venerated at shrines since that means the worshipper is traveling and not staying in place. Shrines to Shaundakul are placed somewhere high up and consist of a stone dais upon which is placed a stone throne and one or more pillars pierced with holes that the wind whistles through. Major centers of worship. Originally, Shaundakul's worship was mostly in Drannor, his biggest temple there being Shaundakul's throne, which still exists and worshippers sometimes make pilgrimage to. His avatar is frequently seen guarding it. But now that the city no longer exists, his shrines, temples, and worshippers are primarily concentrated around the Moonsea North and Thesk. His worship being around the Moonsea is because Drannor was near the Moonsea, so people trading with the city would have brought his worship back with him, along with any survivors who fled its destruction. The most frequently visited shrine as of 1370 was Lanthalas's Requiem, located west of the Stone Bolt Trail in the Stonelands. Thesk also has several temples to Shaundakul because Thesk's entire economy revolves around caravans, shipping companies, and anything to do with travel through the Golden Way trade route. Affiliated orders. The Fellowship of the Next Mountain is an order of rangers and windwalkers who blaze trails in uncharted areas of the Sword Coast North and Moonsea North, usually working alone. The Knights of the Shadow Sword were an order of elite windwalkers, crusaders, and rangers in the late 1300s dedicated to cleansing Drannor of the evil that lives there, operating out of Shaundakul's throne. And the Riders of the West Wind are an order of windwalkers and rangers who hire themselves out as guards on caravans going through uncharted wilderness to distant lands. As of 1370, they had just returned from Saussel and planned on going to Ankaron. Clothing. All priests wore clothes appropriate for traversing the trail, preferring dark colors and silver, along with a dark swirling cloak. They wear a leather or chain gauntlet stained deep purple or black with Shaundakul's symbol on the palm and back, and their entire gauntlet acts as their holy symbol. There was little difference between their adventuring garb and ceremonial garb, other than perhaps they would wear more armor when adventuring, usually leather armor, but sometimes they would wear studded leather or chainmail. Unique spells. Here are some spells unique to clerics of Shaundakul. Favor of Shaundakul, a second level alteration spell. This spell is cast while on a particularly taxing or dangerous journey where everything seems to be going wrong. The favor of Shaundakul causes one thing to go right, a serendipitous event the caster has no control over. The effect itself is determined by the Dungeon Master, but examples include finding a safe camping spot, starting a fire with wet wood, finding shelter in a harsh storm, finding an oasis in a desert, finding a rare herb which cures a particular disease or poison a party member is suffering from, or finding a source of light in total darkness. Shadow Sword, a 3rd level illusion spell. Using his or her gauntleted hand, the priest reaches into a place of deep shadow and draws forth a sword made from shadow, of a type the caster is familiar with, which functions just like a magical +1 sword of the chosen type. It gives +2 to attack and damage rolls against ogres, trolls, goblinkin, giantkin, and giants, and gives a +3 to attack and damage rolls against undead. If the sword ever leaves the priest's hands, enters total darkness, or has a light, continual darkness, or similar spell cast directly on it, the shadow sword is dispelled. If this is caused from one of the previously mentioned spells being cast on it, the spell cast is also dispelled. Gauntlet of Winds, 4th level alteration and evocation spell. This spell enchants the priest's holy symbol, which is their gauntlet, into a Gauntlet of Winds. This spell lasts a number of rounds equal to their level, and each round they can choose to cast one of the following spells, which last for 1 round: Featherfall, Gust of Wind, Wind Wall, or Calm Winds. And the last Shaundakin spell is Dead Magic Shield, a 5th level alteration spell. This spell creates a 2-foot diameter shield of force attached to their forearm. It does not give a bonus to armor class the way a normal shield would, but is successfully interposed between the caster and a spell or spell-like ability. It dissipates the spell which comes into contact with it. Area of effect spells can be blocked for the caster and anyone standing behind the shield, and touch spells can be stopped by forcing them to touch the shield. In order to block a spell, the priest must make a saving throw versus spell with a +1 bonus for each 3 experience levels, rounded up to a max of +5. Divine Realm. Shaundakul's Divine Realm is located on the first layer of Isgard and is called Shaunadour. However, other than its name and location, there is absolutely no information on it. And that is everything I could find on Shaundakul, the Rider of the Winds, the Faerunian god of travel and exploration. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to subscribe for more D&D related content.